He studied the policies and social studies upon which our family law was based, and he concluded that it was largely based upon myth, half-truth, and outright lies, including in a phenomenally important work done by a radical feminist named Lamore Weitzman, who for nearly 10 years refused to release her social studies data for peer review, and it was not until incredibly important federal legislation was already on the books and functioning that it came out that she had misrepresented the facts and that she'd gotten her conclusions wrong, and we still labor as Americans under those horrendous federal policies that were based on her outright lie. We now have in this country every year 1 million new children of divorce each and every year. I, as a simple Texas country boy, can't get my mind around 1 million very well. But I hope you'll imagine with me for a moment that instead of being here at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial, we're in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Now, I've never been there. I've been in some great sporting venues, but I know that one holds over 100,000 people. And many of you have probably seen it on television. And so I ask for you to just imagine for a moment that we're on the 50-yard line at midfield in the Rose Bowl, and around us in that great venue are 100,000 children of all ages. Imagine the Rose Bowl on TV that you've probably seen on New Year's Day filled with children. And then imagine 10 of them. That is 1 million children a year of divorce. Try to grasp the fact that we have 1 million new divorces each and every year, an epidemic of divorce that was created in the 60s when they thought they had a divorce problem. The divorce rate was only 300,000 a year. And yet after half-truths and lies, no-fault divorce was inflicted upon our land. The states adopted it in less than 10 years. And what I can tell you as an historian is probably the most radical fundamental change in law ever in American history. What we have since no-fault swept the nation in the 1970s, now in our nearly the end of our first decade of the new millennium, is 35 years of social policy reflected in our law that we can now look back on and assess its success or failure. And I tell you, our family court policies that have evolved over the last 35 years, beginning with no fault, which by the way is an outright lie. No fault does not mean what most people believe, which is divorce by mutual consent. No fault divorce means unilateral divorce on demand, in which one party who got into a marriage by mutual agreement simply has no recourse because the other party can end the marriage without any defense of the marriage. But I say to you that after 35 years, where social studies over the last 5 to 10 years now come out and uniformly describe with horrific clarity what these social policies are doing to children and adults, and we see in our news reports each and every day, report after report after report of social pathologies erupting, afflicting children, unprecedented skyrocketing levels of juvenile obesity, juvenile promiscuity, dropout rates, incarceration, you name it. If it afflicts children and young people and it is hurting them, you can lay it at the feet of the fatherlessness that is the result of the federal policies created by Capitol Hill down there in our Capitol building. And I say to you that in many ways it was just the creation of a monster that's now grown and grown and grown. And rather than spend a lot of time trying to look back on it, except to understand it, what we should now do is change it. And change it we will. After 35 years of these policies, what we have is 50 million people currently under the direct control of family courts. That's about 20 million non-custodial parents, about 20 million custodial parents, and an equivalent number of children. That is an unprecedented level of government intrusion into the private realm of the family, where the government should go when there's just cause, but where the government should never be without just cause.
Amen.
Last year I saw press reports that we now have about 300 million people in this great nation, and if just my conservative estimate of 50 million people under direct government control is accurate, that's 1 in 6. 1 in 6 of your neighbors, your friends, your family, your co-workers. If you include in my estimate another 50 million for those whose children were in the system, and those who were in the system before their children reached the age of majority, and they've now grown up and they're over the age of 18, and those people are not actively part of the system anymore, you add those to the 50 million who are clearly under direct government control today, and I say to you that over 100 million Americans over the last 35 years have had their lives micromanaged by government court orders in the form of family court custody orders. The vast majority, well over 95% of those parents were fit parents who wanted to be a part of their children's lives. And I asked myself, why, in God's name, why does our government foster, promote, and fund a policy that treats a fit, loving parent, mother or father, as though they are the unfit parent who abuses, neglects, or hurts their child? It's time to change that policy. In this great memorial, one of the presidents who I revere for his courage and his perseverance in a time of great civil war, Abraham Lincoln, if you look on the wall to the left of his statue, when you walk in, you'll see his Gettysburg Address, in which he began, and I quote, "Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure." I take President Lincoln's words to say that our families are engaged in a great civil war. And I call upon our executive branch, Mr. President, please listen to us. I call upon our legislative branch, honorable senators, please listen to us. Honorable representatives in our U.S. House of Representatives, please turn your ear toward us. Our judicial branch, I call upon the Supreme Court Justices of the United States and all those honorable jurists in our United States Courts of Appeals and our U.S. Federal District Courts, please listen to us. I commend for your reading a research paper done in 1995 by Dr. Patrick Fagan, who's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and we were honored to have him be a guest on CPR TV. His synthesis research paper, written with Robert Rector of the Heritage Foundation,